So one thing that was brought up is, and what the real issue that I saw was a problem between the mass appeal of a political candidate and the idealism of Dr. West. So Dore's tactic that he proposed was to organize around class lines. He feels that if we organize around fighting white supremacists, fighting white supremacism is too divisive. So I feel the same way, since white supremacy and racism have been overused to the point of rendering them the terms meaningless. So identity politics is also a losing battle, as a large part of the population is religious and traditionalist. However, the class struggle does not address police brutality or this disproportionate use of it against minorities and things like that. So what would it take for Dr. West to take that perspective? Some people are saying that the battle has already been lost, because when he came from the People's Party, he was focusing on all the right issues. But when he joined the Greens, somehow there was put they wrapped themselves around him and kind of kept him from addressing some of the bigger issues. Do you think the Green Party is focusing more on things they know that are going to bring people to their side, or are they not as well organized as the other third party, the People's Party, who are taking everything head on? What has been your experience with the Green Party?
My experience with the Green Party has been that it's all I've seen is that Rick Glass, who's in charge of ballot access for them, that's the whole driving force behind the Green Party right now. If you try and contact anybody in the Green Party, there's no centralization to the Green Party. And where the activity is, like, you want to get a hold of a representative of the Green Party, you're going to have a hard time getting anybody, from what I understand, anywhere. I think in my state, there's Amy in Arizona that runs pretty much the whole thing, and a guy named Mike who runs the southern part of Arizona. So it's like there's 2 or 3 people that are running the Green Party in your state. That's it. Rick Glass is the most empowered at this point, and the whole focus right now is on ballot access, which these are aligned purposes. So it's that's they Green Party benefits by gaining themselves ballot access. Of course, West is riding on this. It's mutually beneficial and completely aligned. So I don't think that there's any reason to kind of judge what the Green Party's, if they're being over self-serving in what they're trying to do versus helping Dr. West at this point. From what I see, like, there's complete alignment. There's no there's no conflict of interest arising in anything that Green Party is doing. It's also serving Dr. West. So what was the other point of question you had?
That's it. Thank you for sharing about the Green Party, because I got exposed to the Green Party in college, and it was all about corporations taking over the government. There is no plan for keeping the environment safe. Pollution and climate change are coming, or destroying everything, and there is no options. You're either with the Democrats or with the Republicans, and like you have said throughout the interview, there's not that much difference, because they have the same interests, they have the same funders, and they have the same megalomaniac kind of style of governing. But when it comes down to, for people to trust that a third party can get the job done, they will always point to some weird socialist thing takeover that happened in another country, and they're like, do you really want the Green Party to be the new America? And they're always afraid that all the financial interests of America are going to go down the drain. Because when I interviewed Howie Hawkins, he was saying that he was into open borders, and people automatically are like, well, if you have open borders, then commerce and everything goes out the window. So do you think that there's a fear of the Green Party that is, some of it is based on hearsay and almost like a knee-jerk reaction, or are there legitimate reasons why people, even running with the Green Party, can be troublesome? And is there any possibility someone in the Green Party might be able to win?
I think somebody can, I definitely wouldn't be working if I didn't think this was possible. And the confusing is, when you talk about the Green Party, from what I've seen, it's completely decentralized. So we're not talking about you know, like when we talk about the DNC and the RNC, it's a corporation and there's a few people at the top that are making the decisions. So we can talk about what their agenda is and what they're planning on doing. We talk about the Green Party, it's a network and it's a brand that people share. So they're really, what we actually need is more centralization to the Green Party. We need to have you know, someone take, you know, step up and take charge and kind of coordinate and lead everybody. But then once you get back down to that is, you know, this is the problem that I've been out to address, is to unite people, you need to have a shared narrative. You have to have something that you have in common and a purpose that you share. And classically, the only way that we've ever imagined that doing is through an ideology. So we all have to share a common belief in something. And that's the problem. It's people that are intellectual on the left trying to solve these things. You know, we all have slightly different beliefs about what should be going on. I know my beliefs are radical. Like what I would like to see done, probably like way too crazy for most people to think that would work. You know, they can't imagine that future. But I realize I can't push that on everybody. I'm not going to be able to do that. But what I do want to have happen, what we can unite for, is unity itself. We can go ahead and say that what we need is to go ahead and take the you know, take this narrative. So when you're saying what they say and what you hear on the TV and the media describing things and telling you what's going on in the world, that's a narrative that they're shaping for you and trying to frame and, you know, make you think a certain way. So we need to go ahead and take that back. And what we need for that is a centralized location that's neutral. And so that's actually like why I've come up and presenting, and I'm stepping up to push the idea out there, hoping that people that can realize it can take it and run with it. Is we go ahead and need to agree to a neutral ground location and create a brand, or even like a you know, a website, or even physical locations for this sort of thing, to where you go in and you have an agenda that you're agreeing. And usually you have these things, if you look at history, how it's set up, there's usually a formal process that everybody agrees to, that creates equal footing for everyone, and that, you know, we can have a, you know, a discussion, a meeting, you know, council, and work out our differences and come up with solutions and strategize. And that's what we need first, is we need to go ahead and create a central place where we can actually go to for the communication protocol. And what you see a lot of people doing is what they're trying to do is with your podcast. You're trying to go ahead and get information put out, and create a dialogue. Of course, it's you back it with your own, you know, you can't help it. Like, you know what you believe, you're the host of the show, and you're the general theme that's common in every episode. So a neutral location is a place where it doesn't have that, where you do not have the same host, you don't have the same agenda going on, but you have the same format and the same audience. The big audience is what we need to go ahead and get. And I'm willing to go ahead and sit down and let anybody go ahead and put their points of view and share them in front of the audience, as long as I would go ahead and get some equal time, or somebody that I feel represents my views gets an equal time to present those. We can have a discussion that's meant to be constructive and lead to consensus. Because what you're seeing on TV, what's being pumped out there, is propaganda meant to be divisive. I mean, you can look it up. It's in the classic Orwellian hate speech. You know, you've got to get everybody pumped up against an enemy, fearful of them. So right now they've got the left, or the liberals, everybody's scared of Trump. And then on the right, they're all scared that everybody's going to be queer and it's against their family values. That's what they're really worried about. And in fact, like, I almost feel like Bud Light was, took one for the team to run a national test on what happens when you advocate for trans rights to a particular demographic. How powerful would that be in an election, for example? How can we determine that? So you've got one of the corporations that goes ahead and says, well, you know what? We'll just go ahead and stick somebody that's trans on one of our beers and see what happens to our market share when that happens. I think it was just an experiment that they did to just find out how divisive that issue could be, and then be able to use it in this upcoming election. Because I noticed that it's on the the top of the list of all our left candidates. Like, well, I'm sorry, with Marianne Williamson and Cornell West, it definitely mentions trans inclusive rights on their front page of the issues that they stand for. So I'm I don't know, like, is that being used against us? Is that what we, the left wants to promote in order to, they've already got seeded in there to create a division, is that they will go ahead and feed the narrative that they're, that trans issues is a big issue for the election. That's what we're going to be talking about, so that they can go ahead and split the class up and divide it some way, because it's not being able to, they can't use race anymore. You can't go ahead and do the black and white thing that they did for so many years. And a lot of the social differences are going away. Like the immigration was the big one, right? Like, we got to be against the immigrants. So they've always got to find some group to go ahead and, split us into and cause these divisions. And what we need to do is stop letting that happen and realize that, like, we can't let their messaging dictate what we are going to try and do. We need to go ahead and decide what our war plan is, our game plan, move forward with that and execute. And I do see that what needs to be done is it's marketing. So you do not have to craft one message for everybody. You can target particular demographics by going ahead and telling them, what they need to know, what their concerns are, and addressing them. And that's not pandering. That's actually talking to people. We need to speak to them about what they're concerned about, and not tell them what they should be caring about, because that's what the duopoly does. They go ahead and tell you what you should care about, and what you should fear. And yeah, that's how their system operates. I went all over the place with that rant right there.
Don't worry. So Dore claimed that they will come after West like they're coming after Trump and they did after Bernie, and they have already started rumors criminalizing West's campaign. I stopped listening to Tom Hartman, who's a big Democratic pundit, because he accused Jill Stein, Howie Hawkins, and now West of being funded by dark money. This is a typical demonization tactic by the establishment parties to take down their opponents. How is West going to deal with these dirty tactics?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying, is like, no matter what it is, like, what that point is right there, it's just going to keep coming. That messaging is just going to be coming, and they're going to find something after something after something. They'll fabricate things. That's what the media does. So no matter what happens, we can sit here and talk about the things that they're throwing at us, the talking points they want us focused on, or we can say we know. That's what we need to do. We need to go ahead and create a way that we stop responding. Just no, that's just not worth my time or effort anymore. Like, I'm not going to get caught up into going into what the media's talking point is going to be. So yeah, they'll and it will always include something where you do not have the proper information to judge. I know nothing about, haven't done any research in that. So for me to go ahead and form an opinion on something that I have done no research on, yeah, that's my intellect won't allow that to happen. Like, I just, I can't. Yeah, that's not me. So, but most of Americans, you can go ahead and ask them to form opinions on things they know nothing about, and they will base it off of whatever heuristic they can pick up, and they have no idea of what they're talking about. So the media goes ahead and can launch accusations, make up things. They're completely false. It really doesn't matter, as long as they go ahead and start convincing and chunking away at each at the demographic, one person at a time, that goes ahead and wants to form an opinion on that issue without the right amount of information. So this is not going to be easy to do, and the only way that I have to get started for myself is to try and connect and reach out to as many people that have the critical thinking skills and the awareness of what's going on, to realize that if we do not get together and unite a rebellion at this point in time, this situation is not going to change. It's just never going to change if we do not do that.
So the two things that Dore brought up, which are very important, is censorship and the medical freedom movement. And so the biggest issue is, the way the recent pandemic was managed by the government, and how there was overreach into people's lives. And then West said that he would do a truth commission to investigate the response to COVID. And then it went really bad about that, where It was like they were performing experiments on people. They were forcing people to get vaxxed. They were doing mandates and all kinds of stuff. And the biggest question to West was, why you're not outraged about this? So what I feel is that you said if you haven't done research on that subject, you don't feel comfortable talking about it. I think that Dr. West has to have somebody coach him or have responses to everything, because that's going to come up. If he were ever to debate Biden and Trump, there's a lot to criticize on the way that they both dealt with the pandemic. And then they're going to turn it on West and say, what would have you done? And I know Dr. Jill Stein is a doctor, and maybe that's why the overall Green Party was open to a lot of the things that were done to prevent the pandemic from spreading. But Dore quoted the African American caucus within the Green Party, and they were very radical and anti everything that happened. And Dr. West said, well, maybe I would be leaning more towards them, but he didn't seem to be prepared to answer that question. How would have you answered on behalf of Dr. West if you would have a chance?
Oh, we kind of caught me on the last one. I thought he started great with the the Truth Commission. We have to look into that. In general, like, yeah, when I'm presented to with a question where I'm not informed on, I usually just acknowledge like the question and say like, yeah, I don't know about that. Like I would have to get more information about that. So if that's the thing, is he was going on an allies program. I mean, that's what I mean. Like there should not have been anything. In fact, as a presidential candidate, going out there, yeah, I if I was booking his shows, I would definitely not have him on any programs where he's going to be ambushed with a question that he is not knowledgeable on. That would be a starting point. So if I was, his campaign manager, Peter Dow, I would definitely make sure that any program he's on, that this is the protocol for the program. This is the agenda. This is what we will be talking about. Don't have to script it, but I would definitely go so far as to, prevent Dr. West from being thrown something that, blindsides him like that. That was, yeah, that wasn't good. And that goes back to people saying that, like, they should have spoken before that interview. And right now, with all the shows that he's on, he's being on allies programs. I don't think any adversary of Dr. West is going to have him at this point. They do not want to go ahead and help promote him. They'll wait till there's something that they can disparage him for, or that they must have him on, or that they see an opportunity to attack one of his positions and want to go after him. But I wouldn't suspect that there's anybody whose show he's going to be on that they shouldn't go ahead and already have had these things ironed out before the program started. That's not a good look for him to have been asked something that he's not aware of.
But Loyd, I'm frustrated with Dr. West, because I believe that MLK was able to do more being out in the community and protesting and speaking than getting involved with politics, because a kind, loving minister like him was able to push JFK and LBJ, who didn't really care about civil rights, didn't really care about what was going on with the Black community at that time, but they saw it as politically expedient to support them. I would think that Dr. West would have more of an ability to do that if he could organize everyone behind ideas versus trying to do the popularity game that everybody does. The reason that Trump won is because he was already popular before he ran, and then he gave people what they wanted. For Dr. West to be part of the filthy game of politics and be able to outmaneuver these hawks seems very misguided. How would you present him as an option that it is more honorable and more full of valor and respect, like I would describe Dr. West, versus dealing with all these politicians that are going to find ways to knock him down, and because he's too polite, too kind, too loving, he might not be able to withstand the attacks?
Yeah, he's the guy we've got in that spot right now. But I do agree with you that there's something important about what you're saying about MLK. Was he was able to do what he was doing because he outside of the system, organizing people, and doing that did not require him to run for president. And that's that organization of people, that rallying of people that he was capable of, that's kind of what we really need to go ahead and focus on. It's like, you know, we need to unify the, you know, the grassroots movement and get people together. We do have West is the guy that's running for office. He's going to, you know, he's the celebrity appearance. I was actually on Sean St. Hart just a couple days ago. That podcast will be out. But I was talking about, like, you know, I would like to see Keanu Reeves. We need an actor. We need somebody that's popular, an actor. And I was just like, you know, put Keanu Reeves up, dude. Just give him the script that we want him to read. That's what we want. It's a face and a speaker. That is what the guy going for president is. And that's the whole role. That's the whole job, is figurehead. That's what made Obama good. He was a statesman. He well-spoken, good on camera. That's what you want. You know, can handle himself in a debate. That's what you want. The guys that write policy, the things that, you know, we think the president do and he gets so much credit for, that's not the president. That's the people behind the president. You know, so, and that's where we need to go ahead and step up and be. Like, we need to be the ones that are creating the policy and giving it to them. MLK was doing that. He was the one that was saying, like, went to, you know, with Johnson, Kennedy, going to these guys and telling them that this is what we have to say. This is what you need to do. And that's what we need, is we need the, you know, we don't need MLK to do it for us. We can get together. We understand what the role is. We need to go ahead and create that, start creating policy, and then start getting it to the person that can go ahead and do something about it. And then we can have the people behind us and tell them who to vote for. That's where we need to get to, is so that we can just, you know, the people trust some source of information, somebody that they can go to, that's a public institution, a social institution that we have, that's free of the, you know, the corporate media's money, and that it's, you know, trusted by everybody. Right now, nobody trusts a single source of information. There's nothing collectively that anybody says is like, oh, I believe that. You know, you get, you know, the government for sure, and what the CDC says, and then you get half the people that'll believe the government in one case and not believe them the other, and the other half believes them vice versa. So what we need to do is not wait for the government to do it, not wait for a leader to do it. We need to just go ahead and create a brand and get together and unify, and not behind a leader, but behind, and not even an ideology, but behind a format, a protocol, and respect for each other, that we can have a discussion and create solutions.
Okay, so give me your best pitch for West for president and the Green Party to lead the way.
Yeah, I'm not the pitch man. Yeah. Well, I have a pitch for is, like I said, I've started something called public comments. Right now, it's everything is supporting Dr. West. That seems to be the easiest starting point. To unify people, we all have to actually try and get together the people that have the most in common. So I see Dr. West as a unifying force for a large enough group of people to get this started. But in order for him to get to be president, yeah, there's not enough of us. We need to go ahead and get together, and then we have to run a campaign that's an information and marketing campaign to convince the rest of this country to wake up, to see what's going on, and that everybody's being manipulated by what they're watching on TV. Their opinions are being fed to them. You know, and they're not even going to wake up to that. What we have to actually do is we have to just outmarket the corporate media. We have to go ahead and, you know, create an image for Dr. West that, you know, gets across to everybody and makes them realize that that's what we need to do. And then we need to go ahead and stay unified. We need that institution to be lasting, so that we stay unified to fix the rest of the problems. Because, yeah, we are under a, you know, totalitarian state. It's fascist. The corporations run everything, you know, and unless we, you know, create a rebel organization, you know, we have to get together as a grassroots movement to do this. And yeah, so getting into pitching stuff for campaigns, you know, like, no, what I have to say, my opinion on that, it won't matter at all, man. What will matter is, you know, if I can actually do something to effectively help the people that have influence, like yourself, come together with the other people that have influence, and go ahead and craft a message and start getting it put out to the people. So.
Well, you're going to force me to do it, Loyd. So let me see if I can do it. The best pitch for Dr. Cornell West for president would be that we need someone who is from outside of the system. This is something they said about Trump. We need a businessman. We need, a self-made man to speak to the needs of the common people. Dr. Cornell West has a history of being a representative for social justice, for interfaith relations, for biblical prophetic tradition of speaking truth to power. He also is someone who has paid for his stances. I know that he lost some tenure positions based on his support for human rights in Palestine. He's also been out there marching for all kinds of groups that are being persecuted. And he is a representative of minority community who has been through a lot. So I know we don't want to vote based on just race or just gender or any other issue, but to have a Black man in the White House who actually comes from the Black man experience versus being someone who was raised among, the elites like Obama, I think would be a great change and a great opportunity for people to rise with him in that position. And then the Green Party has reputation throughout the world of being the people who are fighting against pollution, fighting against the destruction of the environment. And that is the key issue that we have right now, is that if we can't take care of this world, we won't be able to survive in the next 100 years. So we want a party that is not held by the corporate desire to keep destroying the world and by the obliviousness that we've seen from the big oil and natural gas and all those corporations. So to give the the Green Party a chance would be a great opportunity to see how a different way to govern. And you said that if it's not centralized, then it can be criticized for being disorganized, but it's actually good that it's grassroots, that it is from the people, and that it's not top down like we've been experiencing for many hundreds of years. So of course we want to encapsulate all the needs and all the wants of the members of this country, but we need to create a new alternative for the next generation. And the next generation is not foolish like it's usually portrayed as kids who are too idealistic. We need idealists like the founding fathers were to a certain point, to bring a positive change and to be a standard for the other nations, and not be so forcive in our view of democracy and our view of the only way to run the show is through this type of corporate capitalism and oligarchy. So I appreciate you being on the show, and I hope that we can get this message across. But the most important thing is that we need to gather around Dr. West. So when the fiery darts come his way and they try to accuse him of things, ruin his reputation, and destroy him in whatever way possible, now they destroy people's reputations versus flat out taking them down, that we can stand behind him and not allow for that to happen. And if he were to step out, other people can rise, and we won't all be sheep without a shepherd if it becomes too much for him. So again, I appreciate you coming as someone who has been supporting the Green Party, and I hope that in the future we can do more shows giving you guys an opportunity to have equal access on the radio.
Going ahead, and that's a great message to people that are thinking and aware and interested in politics. What are your ideas for getting that message out?
When Obama started a movement, he had tons and tons of people who were pumped up. They were ready to bring about a change. I remember somebody saying, if he would have used all those people he had on his email database and all the people who signed up to support him, if he would have said, let's go stand outside and fight for immigration rights, they would have all done it. And the same thing with Bernie. If Bernie would have kept going, all the people would have gone. But instead, Obama decided not to do anything once he became president and just fall in line with the rest of the oligarchs. And Bernie decided to not be railroaded like Ralph Nader and be destroyed as a politician. and they both in their own way believed in the incrementalism that we're played with. So they're like, okay, well, now that I'm in power and we see this with AOC, I'm not gonna rock the boat. I'm not gonna get myself kicked out. I'm gonna use my influence now that I have, all these emails and all these donors, and now I can tell Pelosi to the ear, hey, stop being like that or whatever. So once people get in power, they get corrupted or they become the word is passive or complacent.
Complicit. Yeah, I think it's what you're.
And complicit. Yeah. So what we can do as the little people, what we can do is what Jimmy Dore has talked about many times, is that put pressure and have them try to win the vote from us versus us pledging allegiance to whatever party and hoping that they're going to throw some balls in our direction.
Yeah, see that now you're switching it to like that's the attitude right there. They support our views. They're doing a job for us. We're doing all the work. They're getting the job done for us. They represent us. I would go back as far as the fact that I knew Obama was not. I don't think Obama flipped once he got into office. I knew what Obama was going to do before he got elected. I was campaigning for Kucinich back at the time. And I saw him when he was, I remember how big the news story broke when he became a junior senator in Illinois. I'm like, why in the world is somebody getting that much attention? And I think it was like an 02 or something like that when he got that seat. And it was curious to me. I was like, why is this guy getting so much attention? It's just, this shouldn't be big news. This is whatever, just because his own name is weird. Obama, like Barack, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was odd. So when he was running, I knew he was pitching the same neoliberal junk that was George W. Bush, and so I wasn't taken in by that. But once they get in office and become ineffective, yeah, that's the squad, AOC, Bernie. I don't know what they have, honestly. Like it bothers me. I don't know if it's like to not trust them or if it's because they've been led to believe something, that they're buying into a lie and a false narrative and they're being kept in a bubble to go ahead and believe this crap, or if they're being threatened in some sort of way. Like, no, you do this or we have ways of dealing with that. Like, if it goes really dark conspiracy stuff. I've heard some people suggest that like they must have something really on Bernie for him to do that. Because what they did with Bernie, they get him to have this much support. Everybody's backing him. They can't kill him. That's a martyr. They cannot just crush him. No, what they have to do is they have to get him out there and say to the people this bullshit. I endorse Joe Biden. We need to go ahead and do this. They had to make him do it. Like, go ahead and read the books, man. It's in our stories. Like, it's not enough that they go ahead and take their head off. They have to go ahead and get them to make contrition to the people. And that's what they did. And that is what really crushes us. That's what really ruined the people, was to have him go out there and do this act of betrayal. And, there's some of us that feel like he's betrayed. And then there is a group of people that's like, well, I got to go with what Bernie says. It's, got to worry about the fearful neo-fascist rule of Trump coming up, and we have to go this way. So, we need to go ahead and, that grassroots movement, that email list that you were talking about that he had, that is what's valuable. That is what we need to go ahead and get it in our possession and hold collectively. You know how those Facebook and your social media companies, they value your personal data so much, and it does have value. Even your contact information, being able to reach you with a message, has an immense amount of value to be able to get that message in front of you. So if we can, that was part of the original part of the project that I'm on, is to create a database that allows us to hold and control that information, where we're all on something and we can go ahead and request to make sure that any information pertinent to X, Y, and Z gets through to us. We want to know that. And then, like you said, with the immigration thing, if we need to all be aware of like, hey, this is how we're going to do stuff. Today we're starting a general strike. Everybody in the country, no work. We're not doing anything. General strike in this country, shut it down. In order to have that happen, we have to have a database to be able to get that message to everybody. And then also with the ability to get the messaging that this is why this will be effective for us to do this. You know, if everybody makes a phone call to this person at this point in time, it's going to end the problem. And that we can have that kind of influence whenever we want to as we the people, instead of what that's the problem I ran into when I started working with Marion Williamson's campaign. It's like, hey, let's get this grassroots campaign organized. And that's where I found out that, oh no, these call sheets, the numbers, the phone list to go ahead and get a hold of everybody, they're valuable commodities. We cannot just go ahead and, you know, let organizers get their hands on the whole list and be able to keep it for themselves, share it with each other, and do this sort of stuff with. Now, if they have to go ahead and, you know, they want to make sure that they have control of that. They, you know, they've got the grassroots organization on a leash. They can cut it off whenever they want. And that's what Obama did to his 2.2 million grassroots followers when he got into office. See you later. Doesn't matter. I'm not keeping you together. The team's just, you know, the team's disbanded. We just won a championship and we're, you know, one and done.
You see, but Loyd, I don't care about databases or letters or emails, stuff like that. I am challenging Dr. West and Jimmy Dore to stand outside in the sun in a poor neighborhood in Texas, Arizona, Alabama, or something like that, and start walking. Because what happened with the civil rights movement is they're like, we're going to go to the worst places where people are treated the worst, and we're going to stand in solidarity with them. And then the media came to them. Instead of us fighting against the billions of dollars that are being used in billboards, commercials, databases, contractors that pull out people's information, we need to do massive demonstrations to get people's attention. If people see Dr. West chained to a tree, they might say he's a lunatic, but they're going to look into Dr. West, and then they're going to see that he is a consistent person who will not fold for anything. He already has some type of fame behind him. And if he were to do something like that, it would bring the eyes of the world to say, hey, you have a spiritual man who is willing to put his life on the line for the country that he loves and the people that he supports. I don't know why nobody in the Green Party has said, this guy has already marched. He's already done the poor people's campaign. He's already made a name for himself as a moral authority and this, you know, the spiritual successor to MLK in America. Why can he take it to that level? If he goes and debates Ingram or whoever, because they are going to start inviting him to conservative shows and they're going to mock him and humiliate him. Mm-hmm. And Dore was almost heading in that direction, the way he was treating him. That's all that is going to do is not de-emphasize his ability to hold that space of strength that he has. Why is the Green Party not being a little more aggressive and a little more focused like they should be?
Well, I can't answer for what you know what the Green Party's doing, but there is an original point in your premise. I want to know how much you would believe it would happen that the media is going to give attention to something that we do that would actually have an impact on how the audience, you know, that they would favorably perceive what's going on and it would influence them. If you go to, I think it was in you can look up the news, you know, I think it's on a headline of Time or one of the larger magazines, was the most ignored protest of all time was the Iraq war protests. And I was part of those. And the media coverage is, you know, not a complete 100% blackout, but way undercovered. Like they barely did a couple blips on it. And we're talking like this was a global march. Everybody, and I think it's one of the biggest of all time, was, you know, out on the streets against the war. Not getting coverage. I've been part of many marches and demonstrations myself that either got no coverage in the media or, you know, relinquished to a blip on page 6. And if you think that just because Cornell West has, you know, a name that, you know, it would get attention, I'm not convinced. Like I've just seen how the media really works, how they go ahead and control it. They're not going to go ahead and give free advertising to their opponent. They're just not going to do it. And that's what I mean. Like that's what's really important for us, I think, is that we have to face it. That is the condition. We're not going to get the media to cover our shit unless we do something extremely drastic, and in which case they will make it look bad, like the Black Lives Matter protests or Occupy. Anytime you saw images of Occupy or Black Lives Matter protests, how were those? Did those look good? Did that look like what America wanted to see? You know, like did it get a message across, or did it just look like bad and have a negative audience impression? And it doesn't matter so much like who the bad guy is in it, as long as it has that negative audience impression. That's what works for the media to show it that way.
So let me flip it on you. With Trump, it was like watching a car crash or but they loved it. Like the more he even insulted the media, even when he became president, he went after every single institution. He went after every country. And now we see it that because he had no friends and he was intolerable, now they're trying to keep him from power. So he was able to use negative publicity on his behalf because he became a maverick, he became a martyr, he became a victim, and he's really good at playing the victim, and people like that. They say, you know, this is a man who's trying to bring change, and he never actually did anything favorable, maybe a couple of things, but he's always seen as the misunderstood guy, the Messiah that got crucified in the process or something like that. So I know we don't want Dr. Cornell West to turn into that, but there has to be this ability to say, no matter how they cover this, I'm doing the right thing. And that's what happened to MLK. MLK was having dogs and water and being thrown in jail, and they're still defaming him, and they're still saying that he wasn't even that big of a deal or that good of a guy, and everything he said was lies and stuff like that. But rational, good people saw that whatever he was standing for was just. So you can say whatever the Cop City protesters did, whatever the Black Lives Matter protesters, the Occupy people did, if you get enough people to realize that what they're standing for is honorable and truthful and right, even if you don't agree with their tactics, even if you think they're a bunch of hippies or pinkos or whatever, there comes to a point where even some people have realized that standing against Wall Street should have happened more, or that they just didn't have the ability to bring change. With Black Lives Matter, now all the DEI stuff that has come across, that would have been impossible 10 years ago, because it was easy to dismiss, like, oh, you want favoritism because you're a minority. Oh, the minority group is demanding majority privileges. How dare you? None of that stuff would have happened if it hadn't been for Black Lives Matter. And the same would go with an environmental movement. Anything that the Green Party can really hone in and focus, after a while of making a case for it, you start seeing some small results. And if we really want to energize the young people, and that's what Obama did. Obama had this fake veneer of being the minority guy that could raise all of us minorities to the forefront. I felt like a success, even though at that time I didn't know much about Obama, when he became president, because I'm a first generation American from Mexico. And I was like, even if the guy is terrible and he doesn't keep any of his promises, to have someone that looks different in the White House, hopefully will give all of us a standing that we didn't have before. And the same thing with Bernie. If Bernie could have made it further, you say, well, you have a consistent, democratic socialist who's showing that we need to give that a chance. And he connects with young people, even though he's elderly. And the young people understand that that type of, bringing people together and standing for other forms of government, not just the ones that we know might be a better opportunity. The problem with Black Lives Matter and some of the other things is that they went too hard on the socialist agenda or the Marxist thing, and they let some of those guys kind of push the envelope, when the original issue was, we want Black people to be treated with love and respect like everybody else. and their lives have not mattered for so long. So we're still not getting the benefits of the deal that was made with civil rights movement. Once the message got skewed, and it was painted, like you're saying, in the media as violent and wanting to take down the system, that's when the problem happened. So how do you think the Green Party can be seen as incorporating and assimilating themselves into the American system without people seeing it as a threat, where they want to dismantle everything and create something new that might not pan out like in other countries?
I think it's actually, it is image. So what you pointed out was, it really doesn't matter, what was going on. It's the image that we go ahead and get painted and sold. So one of the big things is, we're not going to get the media helping us do any brand marketing whatsoever. So, and I guess that would be the starting point, is we need to establish brands. Dr. West is a brand. That's why I like that. That's a great starting point. We know who he is and what we stand behind. We need to go ahead and create, and Black Lives Matter is a brand, a divisive one, and that was part of the problem. Occupy, that brand was misunderstood. People did not understand what the point of what they were protesting is. What was their end goal? They're just like, oh, Wall Street's bad. What's the option? Most people do that. They have no understanding of economics. They have no idea what was being demanded. Actually, like off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what a list of demands that Occupy had out was at the time. I don't know if they're probably consolidated out. Black Lives Matter, you're right. They were very clear about that. First of all, they want to recognize the fact that, this disproportionate amount of violence is being perpetrated on Black people by police. And secondly, that the police are out of control with the violence altogether. They were living in a police state. Now, what is the message that we need to get out there, and a brand that would suit us? And that's what I was coming up with this concept of public comments, or town hall roundtable. These three ideas I've linked together as a brand concept that I'm not wed to. Just to go ahead and use a model of what we go ahead and need to have out there is that we need to go ahead and have a neutral meeting place, and protocol for going ahead and being able to engage in our political process, divorced from the control of these corporations. And I could see where it could evolve to, is just like, where we have an app that includes an AI interface, and that, we're able to participate in the public discourse and in our political process with ease, and without the filtration of corporate media telling us who the candidates are, who to vote for, who's polling at what numbers. We need to get everybody on one page. And that was something that was brought up too, is like the difference between centralized versus hierarchical. A hierarchy is, top down, where you're saying you do have a central point, but it is the top, and it controls all information, and information goes in one direction. Centralized, though, just means that we have one point that everybody can share in common. Like, imagine that we're all nodes, we connect with each other, we have our social relationships, but we all should include a connection to this one node, this one point that we can go to, and make sure that we're getting all of the same information across our society, and sharing it. And a protocol there for going ahead and having, what I was saying, the public discussion, and having these issues discussed to bring it to consensus, so that we come to agreement. Discussions like this that we're having, podcasters are having them all over the place, instead of what we're seeing pundits do on TV, which is adversarial, divisive, and meant to be polarizing. It's deliberately crafted to be polarizing, and we have to move away from those sorts of things that are going on, and move to promoting a different culture and a different awareness. And building this takes some awareness of what it is that we are trying to go for. So that's what I mean. Like, if I can get the message across to you, if I can go ahead and get the seed planted, and help others go ahead and I don't want to be, I'm not a good leader. I'm like, that's not my character. It's not who I am. But I am good at understanding abstract concepts, and bringing them and writing them down on paper. And other people are even better at taking that, and once they understand it, communicating the message more clearly to even more people. If we can do this and get the message out, that the single message we need to get is, hey, over here, this is where you need to listen to. And I don't want to be the one that has the mic. I'm just saying, like, everybody that has any following, like, we need to go ahead and have a place, central place that's neutral, where, yeah, everybody knows that that's who's in charge. That's where we need to go to listen to about what the thought process for our society is.
Well, Loyd, I want you not to sell yourself short, because what I know of organizing is that we're all leaders, and the best leaders are the ones that are behind the scenes. Because what the one critique of the civil rights movement is that if you put too much emphasis on one individual, when that individual is no longer there, the people are kind of lost. So if we can have 1,000 Dr. Cornell West, in the sense of we're all standing up for human rights, for fighting against injustice, giving the poor a fair chance, making sure that nobody's discriminated for whatever reason, making sure that our politicians are accountable, that our system works for the better of mankind, and that we're spreading light instead of darkness to the world. If we can all stand together and believe those things, and prop people who are spokespersons, people who are representatives and legal strategists, people who create the policies and who enact them, judges, governors, even the president himself. Like you were saying, the president is a figurehead. So the cabinet, the administrators of the government, if we can build people to have that type of core values and that strength to be able to withstand all the temptations that politicians run into. I have this thing I've seen in Texas, where whenever Hispanic politician stands up and tries to run or govern, they always knock them down through they caught them with money, or they caught them with committing adultery or something like that. Kind of like what they were trying to do with MLK. They were, any weakness they try to exploit and try to discredit the person and their character.
So ad hominem text. Yeah.
So if we can all have a strong character and a strong ability to stay focused on what's important and not become wrapped up in the system, then we can bring about lasting change. But as we have all seen, the politicians have become too entangled with a corrupt system, or a system that is not favorable to the people. And say it's for the people, by the people, and like, really, like, is it anymore? Now it's for the corporations and their interests, and all the people who they bought and are paid for. So if we can turn that around, then this country could live up to its ideals and to the what everybody would like for it to be. But we have to be in one step together, in line with each other. So I hope that we can inspire people to do that. I hope Dr. West can have a clear message, and that as he moves forward, that's will stand the test of all the different things that are going to come his way, and all the other people who are running who have absolutely nothing to give, nothing new to bring to the table. And like Biden said, nothing fundamentally will change if I get elected. And somehow the majority of American population find comfort in how it is. It might not be the best, but at least is not known and common and what I'm used to. And it's like that type of defeatist attitude and complacent way of living is what's bringing the country down.
We definitely, it's as bad as it gets. Is that's how I started when we started this conversation. This is a fixed system, and what we're watching, the discussion in politics on TV, it's all theater. It's not. I don't think any of it's really substantially real. Like the outcome is already, that's the target. The outcome's determined. And they're doing whatever it takes to keep the population manipulated, interested in thinking that they know what's going on. But it's a facade. I don't know. I don't buy into any of it. I think it's all, it's like I said, they're just stoking division between the red and the blue, getting people to argue. I guess it's for me, it's like, what does it take for us to collectively unite. How do you envision, if we could build something outside of government, like it's a novel, it's like a new thing that we want to create. If we could build an institution that works, that allows people to, participate and be involved in politics, and in our, self-governance, how can you imagine something like that that's not part of what we already are existing? Because that's something I'm having a hard time is communicating to people, is like, what we could be doing, versus what we actually are stuck doing and think is the only way that things can go on. That we think that what we really need to do is think about how, what's as a viable candidate for president, or what's going to happen, and our thoughts are all on those matters, versus like, what is it we can do right now, today, to start uniting people together so we can move forward.
Well, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I've heard before people say, well, if you join the PTO, if you join the city council, if you run for office, I don't know if you saw what I saw. What Trump brought about was a high percentage of women and minorities running in opposition of what he was doing. And to me, that was a positive change. So so sometimes you need to be pushed. Like, you need to see how bad things can get before you can say, we got to do something before we get run over. So in the same light, we need more environmentalists speaking on behalf of the world and the next generation in every part of society. So I agree with the Green Party's tactic that we have to get our message out there. I don't think that other than being a good neighbor and taking care of your family and creating community, I don't think that we should only be focused on creating something separate from the government, because as much as government is clunky and it takes years for things to get done and stuff like that, that's all we have, and that's what is humanly possible. So as we intermingle with the rest of society, our voices have to be as strong or even stronger to get the message across. And what you run into is a lot of people saying, oh, that's just wild theories and craziness about how we need to stop pollution and we need to have regulations, and the people that commit crimes against the natural world need to pay. Like, they think that all that stuff is hogwash and it's anti-business and anti-worker, when if you really care about workers, you wouldn't allow for them to be made sick from all the toxins and things that come out of factories. You wouldn't allow them to live in places that are toxic waste dump yards, and then they build a house on top of it. You wouldn't allow houses to be made with all kinds of carcinogens and toxins. So we need to implement that in every single part of our existence in this country, and then be able to pass that on to the rest of the world. So I think that we need to have more representation, and to make people more aware, like you're saying, you want people to be awake that what we've been doing so far is not working. And we have huge rates of cancer, huge rates of all kinds of diseases that are coming about, and nobody's looking at how pollution and possible things coming from the environment and the dumping of bad things into the world is bringing that about. So I want to see more greens everywhere, and then those greens, as we start obtaining that power, then we use that power for good instead of using it for more corruption and more. So, but even in the people are running for mayor, they always have some type of interest in development or some type of connections with the big corporations that are polluting. So they're not going to want to come after them. And then if you come after them, they try to take you down. So the ability of money getting into politics is one thing that we need to fight, because if they have all the money in the world, like you said, all they have to do is smear you, portray you as someone who's trying to destroy the economic system, and then you have no ability to get your message across. So we need to also tap into all the rich movie stars and musicians and all these people who claim to be green, they claim to care about the environment, but then they hide their money, or they only give it to the political parties that are help them make more money, versus giving the money directly to the people that need it, and the political party that's going to represent interests that they claim they have.
Okay, I have substantial information to share with you on those things. One is that okay, you went with the communication stuff first. I have on Facebook public comments. So if anybody wants to know where you can go to, take a step forward, go to public comments. I'm just starting this. Hopefully I can get it developed, but from there you'll get the information on the rest of how we can go ahead and organize to take back our public discourse, so that we have a voice, and instead of having to listen to the information that they're feeding us. Then the other thing that you brought up, all of the stuff ties to our economic system. You're talking about how corporations operate. And at the core of the problem is there's a documentary from I think 2000, 2001 called The Corporation, describes that because of the rules of corporations and how they're set up, they're sociopathic. They have to pursue profit in good faith for the shareholders and maximize this. That's their only concern, and that's what it's legally set up to do, and that's what they have to disregard everything else. If you look to Germany, though, they have a different model for what a corporation can be. And I would reference that as an example. If you look up like Siemens Corp, which has been around since the 50s, they have labor represented on their board. And that's one of the things we need to do. So we can make the corporate definition so that a corporation must have representation from labor and stakeholders that would include your community, and depending on the size of the corporation, environmental regulators. They have to be on the board of directors and steer the corporations, and then remove corporations from having to pursue profit for shareholders as their sole objective. That needs to be removed. And from there, there's some other issues of economics that need to be addressed. One is that I think we should nationalize our central bank. I think that is the most rational, sane thing to do. And it's not something that you will find talked about or discussed anywhere. But if you look at all the money that's created in our financial sector, and that whole business, that we understand finance is something that produces something for our people, for the economy, for society, it doesn't. Wall Street does nothing but cut profits out of the system. They're basically bilking America constantly for money. That's exactly what the bankers are doing too. So they're just stealing from our labor, and they're contributing nothing, doing nothing, and they're proud of it. You can go ahead and look up what Soros and Larry Fink and who's the other one? I can't think of it. Anyway, Warren Buffett. These guys that are in finance, they think that they're so clever because they do nothing, they give nothing back, and they take more than anyone else. And that's absolutely insane. So if we would nationalize our central bank, that would be the biggest step towards correcting this. There's a huge history, and you can find out more about it. I've written some stuff that's out on that public comments Facebook page and try and get that information out. But that's one step that we need to do, and then correcting it from there is like what would replace the way our the stock market operates is we could have industry banks that would actually support burgeoning industries in our society, instead of trying to compete them out of existence or buy them up and gobble them up and just turn them into a monetized profit machine that creates nothing that we really want to have. We're as consumers in this country, we're given the idea of choice, and we're fed the idea that the products we're getting are superior products because of the way capitalism works. That's not true at all. We get the most profitable products for the people at the top. We do not get the best products for the consumer. And then there's one more point about if we nationalize our central bank, we could go ahead and make sure everybody is guaranteed financing for housing. The government could put us all in houses, back it as loans. We could all be financed. If you don't pay it off, it's still the exact same sort of situation that goes on with a bank. There's a no loss scenario for anybody that finances property. So that's something our government could do. And the end result of that is that our dollar would become backed by the actual property in this nation, which is, I don't know, a very rational position in my mind, that, what our dollar represents, or is, substantially pegged to, is, you know, the value of the land that is the United States of America. We're down to 4 more minutes, man. This has been fun with you.
Thank you. We're gonna close with just you know, in Radio Free Nashville, we when I joined their volunteers, they said, we want you to do something that is different from the conservative pundits. And it was right before Trump got elected that I joined, and you were hearing a lot of people say, well, this guy might not be my cup of tea, but he stands for what I believe in, or at least he has a vice president that supports our religious needs, and then he's going to bring judges that are going to support our agenda. So he might be the worst person in the world, but at least, you know, he's giving us a place in the table. So the one thing that I don't know if the Green Party has ever dealt with is having to compromise and work with other folks, because what happens when you're too big of an idealist or you have too big of an agenda is that people start saying, well, that's great on paper, but when you actually get in there, how are you going to be able to work with the Republicans and the Democrats to make legislation that we can all agree on? So in your experience, since you've advocated for different candidates, do you think that can be like an Achilles heel when you have someone who's coming from complete radical perspective that it's hard for people to fathom how are they going to incorporate themselves into the greater system?
Yeah, well, the way I see it is that the idea of you know, if Cornell West could be in office and that system is still like what we're looking at right now, what you're talking about being able to incorporate into, that's a nonsense hypothetical. There has to be so much change that goes into getting him elected that we no longer would be discussing whether or not he needs to, you know, coordinate and cooperate and get along with those people. Like if what it takes to get him elected is such a powerful thing that he would be able to dictate terms. If we can get him elected, then we can take over the Senate, the House, and every other governing point in, you know, the country. If we can get him elected, all of that is, you know, trivial. So that's what I'm saying is like getting the grassroots campaign together and that we're organized and that we can control, you know, the direction of this country, that the people can take back control through rational discourse instead of propaganda and opinions that are being fed by the media. If we can actually make that happen, all offices in the nation are up for grabs. You know, so if we can get West elected, like I don't see, you know, that's relevant what you're talking about right there. Like if we would be so powerful, that would be such a powerful thing to have happen that there wouldn't be any challenge to his authority. Like it's really impossible at this point to beat the duopoly. So you know, if we could do that, then like they would be crushed.
Yeah, but in what way? Because that's the first thing that came after Bernie is like, you're talking about a revolution or a revolution? You're saying we need a revolution of ideas, or you're talking about a socialist system has to take over? So when you said that there is no bounds once we get a Green Party representative, are you saying that incrementally with time we would be able to get other Green Party people, or you're saying that once he gets in, then we have to dismantle the whole system?
So yeah, if we can, if Dr. West gets elected president, then that would mean that we have successfully organized a grassroots movement. Or however, like I don't know if you can imagine, like the TV, the corporate media is not going to be putting him on. So in order for us to get the message out, to control the narrative enough, to communicate to the people and be able to get that many votes, and then to make sure that all those votes are counted, that's the next step. So if we can go as far as those two things, that we can get enough people the information that they vote for him, then have the votes counted, and get him into office, we've kind of won the war at that point. Like getting the rest of the policies and agenda done, it would be, you know, trivial, because those offices, every other seat in, you know, the Senate and the House, those are up for grabs next. Because if they no longer can control the way politicians are getting elected using the corporate media outlets to control the information, they know that game's over with. So how far would they be willing to go to stop that from happening? I don't know. So I'm just trying to push to the point of like, what does it take for us to go ahead and get the messaging out there to create a campaign so that people are tuned in and understanding what's really going on in the world instead of what they're being fed on TV. And I think the possibility exists. I don't know if you like, if you look at, for example, with 9/11, over half the country does not believe the official narrative put out by the government, according to, polls. Were you aware of that? Did you know that the half the country doesn't believe the what the government tells us about 9/11?
I can see that. Where are you going with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like, that's how much the media has lost control. So there's at least half the people in this country are not believing everything the media tells us. The other point of that is the official 9/11 narrative is the only one the media sanctions and puts out. You've never seen them put out any programs about conspiracy theories on 9/11. And they actually, that conspiracy theory term became extremely popular when the discussion of 9/11 came up. That was 9/11 conspiracy theorists became the popular term. And like in the same year that happened, they broadcast to like 10 million people on television a conspiracy theory about the moon landing. And they fomented all of that discussion about the moon landing. And that was allowed. They would put that on television and have a discussion about that topic. But, you will not see them come up and have a discussion about, what happened on 9/11, anything that conflicts with the official narrative. So they're controlling it to that point. And what the polls are showing is that half the country is not necessarily buying the bullshit. So that's what I'm talking about. If we can get that half of the country that isn't buying the bullshit that the corporate media is feeding them in tune into one place and be able to control the messaging to go ahead and get West elected or any president candidate, like whatever we choose. Like, actually, that's the whole thing, is like, what's our platform? What is it we really want? And then, will this guy represent it in good faith? I'm all for whatever that is. So I think Dr. West is the best candidate we have so far to do that. He's not running, like, I think the two, Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. are running in the Democrats. I don't understand that. The DNC has been very clear that they're a corporation. They are going to have their committee select who the candidate is, and they've been very public about the statement that it's going to be Biden. And that's been upheld in court since Bernie in 2016, when they ruled that the DNC can decide shit any way they want to. They do not have to count votes. They can make the rules and do whatever they want, as long as, I guess, the only thing that has to happen is that they have to follow their own internal rules. But they just had a meeting on the 14th, and yeah, they're not changing anything. So none of the system is going to change. It's a matter of us to get the Green Party candidate elected. So that's why we're backing that up. But how we're going to get it done is where my focus and concern is. We have to get control of the information that's going out. I think once people see the information, it's very easy to understand who to vote for. But it's a matter of even seeing the information and having a rational discussion that you can tune into about it. And all they're hearing is spoiler candidate, and you'll end up with Trump if you vote for Dr. West. That's all the mainstream media is putting out there. Spoiler candidate narrative.
Well, I know I've taken a lot of your time, but the last thing, and this, I promise this is the last thing.
No, I don't. I love doing this, dude. You caught me at my worst time of day. It's like in the mornings. You catch me in the evenings, and I flow a lot better.
Oh no, you've been doing great. So both Dore and his co-host or guest host, who goes by Pasta, they both said that Trump would be a better president than Biden for whatever reason, and they're worried about West becoming like a commercial for Biden because he is willing to look at the nuances, and then they go and say, well, Trump overall, he did not start a war with Russia. Overall, he wanted to dismantle NATO. Overall, he, whatever small thing they can say that he did, it's kind of like when the Republicans are trying to find something that he did right, like he gave loans to small Black businesses or something like that, and he did at the end of his tenure. So they'll say something as ludicrous as, because Biden has gone overboard and done even worse things than Trump, we are gonna not, in theory, we wouldn't back a third-party candidate because they're not going to win anyway. And if you truly ask us of the lesser of two evils, we're going to go with Trump. How defeatist and obnoxious that can be to you, and it is to me, because they've forgotten of all the things that he did, which dismantled regulations. He kept some leadership positions empty because he couldn't find someone that would be super loyal to him. He did a lot of things that were destructive, and they don't want to focus on that. They just want to focus on the two things that he did that might be positive in opposition to Biden. But it's almost saying, if West or RFK or somebody got to the front, we would be there for them. But because they're not, and most likely they're going to fail, then we're just going to have to be stuck with Trump again.
All right. Like there's the two things there. One was when you said what Trump did that was best. Trump did do something like I was a fan of, which was get people pissed off, worked up, and kind of involved. That what we would have gotten with Hillary was more placating, pacification, and they just keep the policies the same. So that's my thing, is like policy wise, we're not seeing much difference. But what Trump did bring out was, he stirred up shit in this country. And that to me was the plus. I'm like, everybody just pretending like this shit is working and we're bombing the world all the time and the violence is terrible and the education is crap and we're living in poverty. We're okay under Obama with this. And I was worried that's just going to be continuing what goes on with Hillary. So when he got in, like I saw people like they got fired up, on both sides, pissed. And that chaos, I think, is where I see that there's the possibility for opportunity more. Whether what to say about what I believe one of them will do better than the other one, or how the outcome is, it's just based off of what the TV's been feeding me. I mean, I haven't sat down and done a full inventory of what theoretical policy differences, each candidate would have done in the other one's place. If it had been Hillary instead of Trump, what policies would have been slightly different, what nuanced shit's going to change. I haven't sat down and done that laundry. It seems like a kind of a waste of my time. And then, oh wait, I lost what the other one was discussing the difference. Go ahead.
So at the end, it's why waste your vote on a third party if we all are seeing what's coming? It's either going to be a new Trump election if he doesn't get thrown in jail, or a new Biden where Biden is going to try to give us a couple of bones. He's like, okay, Dr. Cornell West, you brought up some good points. I'll make you the EPA guy, and I'll give your followers free tuition for state universities, and placate us and kind of, because that's the highest possibility of happening. What would you respond to a scenario like that?
Well, like it's kind of like I'm talking about what do you think's going to happen on the next episode of Star Wars? I'm like, oh, it's up to the writers, like I don't think that this isn't logically concluded sort of stuff. But knowing how this, looking at how this script's been going so far, the way I'm kind of thinking things are going to go is they're trying to figure out whether or not enough people can buy that Biden is the next president. The people are going to accept him for another 4 years. I think the people in charge of shit are pretty, the oligarchs, I think they're pretty happy with having Biden in that spot as long as his health and his brain keep up. Actually, I don't even think they care if his brain keeps up. Like the dude's tripping, falling down. He's not, he's doing all these glitchy things. I don't think it really bothers them. He's not really a leader. It's just a matter of how much people are going to buy. The people are going to believe this guy is still president. And I think they're kind of waiting to find out, if America can, believe this. So it's kind of, I think they're going to wait to determine if Trump goes to jail until after the primary. That's kind of my guess, is that we're not going to know the outcome of how Trump plays into this till, after the primary, and we see how strong Joe Biden is as a candidate. I think if he's, if they're struggling to keep him propped up in his own party against Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., they might think that he's just too weak to continue, in which case I think Trump will get, he's not going to go to jail if that's the case. And if he doesn't go to jail, I think they're going to give him enough media attention and he's going to be pumped up enough that I think, yeah, we'll see Trump in 2024 if that happens. And that's the game that they're going to push. But if they think Biden's strong enough that he could at least beat, a Trump torchbearer, then, they'll let Trump go to jail. They'll let one of these other, and that's what they field, 8 Republicans, and each one has their own slightly nuanced, different message. And they're doing a study group. They're watching which one, which one's more likable, who they can sell the easiest. I think who's going to be the easiest for them to work with and allow to, to come into office. I think that's how the script's being written. So I think, yeah, if Trump goes to jail, whoever the torchbearer is going to go ahead and keep a lot of, the Trump sycophant followers are going to be like rallying behind that guy if he's, pumping up that he's, carrying the torch for Trump. And then, there'll be the other ones, and they'll probably fall off and end up going more towards West. The ones that were kind of feeling that they were voting for Trump off principle, whatever their mindset is. But it's kind of like, like how I think goes isn't so important. It's like, this, how are they going to be, writing the narrative and controlling how, America thinks? And if we can do anything to stop that from happening, can we stop people from watching this ridiculous duopoly show that gets put on and, wasting our energy and, our cognitive function on that? Start realizing that's a moot point. What we need to focus on is what we need to do to go ahead and build a messaging campaign and get and market, West out there, get him, sold to the people, make people aware of him and his brand. So I don't know if that's quite what you were looking for response on that, but that's where my frustration is.
We're gonna have to leave it at that. We want to thank Loyd McNeil for being on the show. He's an activist, grassroots activist in Arizona, supporting the Green Party, and we've been discussing Dr. West's run for president and the Jimmy Dore interview that became very controversial and has been being debated. And was it helpful? Was it divisive? Was it a problem for his campaign, or did it push him to be more honed in on his message and how to get people excited about his campaign? So again, we want to thank you, Loyd, and we will be back next week with another episode of Uncensored here in the Mystic-Skeptic radio programs. Thank you.
And can I just plug before I go, if for everybody out there, public comments on Facebook. That's where I'm, trying to kick off the grassroots organization and get us going. So if you could just look up public comments on Facebook, you should be able to, find where we're all trying to convene at. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you. Take care.